So there is two different mechanisms in the cerebellum. One is the feedback mechanism, and the other one is feed-forward mechanism. The feedback mechanism is something that happened in the past. So cerebellum is processing information, the motor information that was sent from the rest of the brain, and it compared that with the sensory information that is received from the joints and from the muscles and tendons. So that it just compare it, but it cannot do anything about it because that's already in the past. So it cannot predict it. It cannot prevent any problems with that. With a feed forward, any information that is coming, it comparing with the information that's already has. So that kind of movement should have happened in the past multiple times. So cerebellum should have that motor information and its memory. So now when the information is coming down, cerebellum looks at it and see if the information is correct or not. So the sequence of the movements are okay or not. So that way, if there is an issue with that, it can correct it. So this is happening in the future. So before the movement happens, this is passing through the cerebellum. So that's why the cerebellum can fine-tune movements and correct errors. So this is fast. There is other connections between cerebellum and other parts of the central nervous system. So one of them is called vestibulocerebellar, or connection between vestibulum and cerebellum. That is for vestibulo-ocular reflex. So anytime you move your head, and also the eyes are moving, so that way the object can focus on top of retina. So for that, and this vestibular information that is getting from semicircular canals and from the vestibule, that information is sent to the paravermal area and also to the flocculonodular lobe. The information is processed and that's sent to fastigial nucleus. Now the fastigial nucleus sends information back to the vestibular nuclei, and bilaterally you can see that, and the vestibular nuclei sends that information to spinal cord. So this is the vestibulospinal tract. Also, the fastigial nucleus sends information to reticular formation, and bilateral reticular formation is sending information to the spinal cord through the reticulospinal tract. So these two tracts are important for the balance and for movement and truncal stability. So that way it is helping with the eye and head movement, and also it's important for balance. Another tract or connection is between the spinal cord and cerebellum. So this is a spinocerebellar connection. So if you look at it here, the information that is proprioceptors are sending to the spinal cord, that information from the limbs and from the trunk, it goes to the anterior lobe, vermis area, and also paravermal area. That information goes to EGF, and then from EGF it goes to the three different areas. One is going to the red nucleus of the midbrain, and from the red nucleus, this is bilateral, so that is coming down, and that is making the rubrospinal tract. The other one is that it is going to the reticular formation, so this is the reticulospinal tract, and that also information is sent to vestibular nuclei, so this is the vestibulospinal tract. So all these three tracts together, that makes the medial pathway, if you remember it. So this information also sent to the contralateral olive, and unfortunately the information is not here, so the olive is also processing this information. So this is important for the axial skeleton, and also for the shoulder and hip girdle muscles. Other information is sent contralaterally to the thalamus, and the thalamus, the veal nucleus is processing that ventrolateral, and that goes to the cortex of the cerebrum, and then it crosses again in the medulla. So if it goes through the this is going to lateral corticospinal tract, so it crosses in the medulla, and that goes to the distal part and the limbs. So although cerebellum is sending is to the contralateral side, and the information from cerebellum is going to the contralateral cortex, but again cortex is crossed over, so the decussation happen in the medulla and the lower part of the medulla. So still cerebellum is on the ipsilateral side of those muscles. So same idea there. It's a contralateral on the cortex, cerebral cortex, but on the ipsilateral side on the cerebellum. Another more complicated one, and this is not a lot of information, there is a lot of research going on, and I think there's will be a lot of more new things that will be discovered in the future. And this is cerebrocerebellar connection, or neocerebellum. So it has a lot of different functions that are there. So one is for hand-eye coordination. The other one is understanding the sensory consequence of movement, which is related to previous sensation that the cerebellum had from the different parts of the body. So it is in the memory, and it compare that information with the past experience. Also, it is important for the planning of the voluntary movement. So this is making those movements more reflexive, so you don't have to think about it, and also fine-tune those movements, so improving the skills that you do on a specific activities. It's not just the motor information is processed here, but also cerebellum is helping with the cognitive and sensory processes, and has some importance in the processing language, because the movement of the different muscles, and also the proprioceptive information that is received during those movements are processed by cerebellum. So indirectly cerebellum also processes language. And if you look at it here, the cortex is sending information through the corticopontine tract that goes to the pons. It crosses the midline, it goes to the lateral zone, and from the lateral zone it goes to the dentate nucleus, and either it goes to the red nucleus, then thalamus, or it goes directly to thalamus. So there's two different tracks there. Then dentatorubro-thalamic, because it's passing through the red nucleus, or dentator-thalamic, which is not passing through the red nucleus. That goes to cortex, and then again it crosses the midline and through the lateral corticospinal tract that goes to the limbs. So that is important for hand-eye coordination.